issues. Oh, sorry, I just got the
Sorry.
thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just noticed. Sorry about that. I had to continue, Olivia.
Okay. Do a lot of volunteering with environmental issues. Right now, I'm working as a volunteer with the Atlas 3 project, which is tracking native birds in Ontario that are like where they're nesting and migration patterns, stuff like that. I do also help with Monarch Watch, and then I do a lot of clam counting as well. And then I'm running for a board of director position for a local conservation area in North Bay. But like for nursing, my practice specialty is acute psychiatry and sexual assault nurse examiner.
Thank you
So
so
that's
much,
me.
Olivia. Yeah, you're doing so much. Thank you so much. And next I'll ask Emma if you'd like to introduce yourself.
My name is Emma. I'm a first-year nursing student, but in a 2-year program, so I don't have very long to be a nursing student or to, I guess, be in the role of a nursing student liaison. Unfortunately, I haven't really had a lot of time to get involved in a very active way, but I do like to nag my family and friends about all the small changes that they can make, and try to do some of those kind of smaller individual local level initiatives.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emma. Hilda, why don't you go next?
And I've been with ONEIG since its inception. And I'm Hilda Swirsky. It's nice to see you, Gideon. And I have
likewise.
I'm currently on ONEIG being a liaison with Kane, who is really trying hard to be nationally recognized for their environmental work. And for the first time ever this year, we have representation in almost every province. So of course I have to make sure Ontario is right in there with all the wonderful things going on. So I am also the liaison with the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. So we are working hard on the election platform together, how we're going to do it, how we're going to try and perhaps have all candidates debate. And I am also the key person for their Ontario conservation and emergency preparedness that they are doing, the climate emergency committee. So it's quite exciting because it's been a lot of what I've done. This has been on climate change. So, and it's just, I'm gonna keep doing what I've been doing. And of course, the next thing we're going to talk about on the agenda is the World Water event that I'm planning for Sunday. So I've been busy doing that. We still have a hand in the synagogue and trying to convince people that environment and faith are also intertwined.
Awesome. Yeah, no kidding. I think that's so many things are going on. We're going to talk a little more about that, and Dr. Green, Samantha Green is going to come on and she's going to talk a bit more about the campaign work too. So that's exciting. It's going to all tie in together. Thanks so much, Hilda. I'm going to see, maybe let's see, go through the exec. We haven't heard yet from Jess, if you're available to introduce.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Great to connect with some different faces today. I'm Jess. I'm the communications E&O. I've been a supporter of ONEIG for a few years since I moved back to Ontario and just took on the communications role in the last year or so, I guess. And I'm really enjoying sort of connecting with the board. And before that, I was able to support, I guess, a bit with some of our policy writing on climate change and water action. And so I'm a nature enthusiast myself, and I'm happiest in nature. And I'm really super aware of how tied it is to our health and the social determinants of health and all those components. And so yeah, I'm happy to be here tonight and connect with you all.
Thanks so much, Jess. Let's see who's left. We have, why don't we move over to Ivan if you're available.
Hi, I'm Ivan. Sorry I missed the last meeting. I set my alarm incorrectly and
By the time I got on, it was done.
No worries.
I take transit, and aside from that, I'm here because it was free, as I mentioned last time. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm happy to see you here. Awesome. And Gideon, I know we're going to hear from you later, but I'd like to just hear a quick intro if you'd like.
Sure. Yeah, I work with the David Suzuki Foundation. I'm a policy analyst, and we'll talk a little more later about some of the issues that we're really focusing on in the election.
Thanks so much, Gideon.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Let's see. Victoria, now if you've made us back, hopefully this sounds working for you. Let's try.
I'm hoping. I'm not a robot.
Yes,
Okay.
it's working. Yeah, so just a quick intro. Whatever
Sorry, what are we doing?
Just a quick intro, whatever you like to share, like your role and a couple tidbits.
I'm the finance exec. I'm doing a gardening with kitchen scrap shortly. Sorry, kind of caught off guard right now.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. We'll hear more from you later too.
Yeah.
I think Dominique is the next one to go. I think.
Yeah, thanks, Jocelyn. Hey guys, my name is Dominique. I'm one of the policy and political action UNOs with Olivia. I've been part of ONEIG for about 2 years now, just helping with all the projects going on. We always have lots of exciting stuff planned. So I know we have our kitchen scraps Skillshare coming up with Victoria. So I'm really excited for that. I've been growing lots of plants lately. I've been growing like a nest of avocado plants. So I'm going crazy. They're like I have like eight on the go right now. And just everything, spending time outside, and also nature enthusiast, and really trying to encourage like my family and friends to also understand like our impact on the planet, why it's so important, everything like that. You know, sometimes it's hard to get through to people, but we just keep trying, you know.
Yeah,
excited to be here tonight. And I said a quick question actually, Jocelyn. So the link you sent me for those minutes, I know it says it's a copy of the quarterly meeting from March. So did you want me to like create a whole new one and like with just brand new minutes? Because I was like suggesting stuff, and I'll just totally I'll get rid of the stuff I just did there.
Sorry.
But
let me fix this. Just 1 second here.
No worries. Here, I'm gonna remove everything.
Oh no, I got this. Here, try that.
Okay.
That's what I meant to send. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Here, I'm gonna go.
Thank you for checking.
No worries.
So, and I mean, that's fine too, because the minutes obviously are going to be next up on the agenda. And yeah, so I'm Jocelyn, I'm the chair and co-chairing with Hilda right now. I do a lot of work with food. My main roles are, to support my family and to do some PhD work related to climate and food sovereignty and security. And yeah, kind of in the world of food and gardens now too. So I'm excited that we're doing a workshop soon, Victoria. Let me go back to our slides here. Oh, 1 second. Bring that back up. Okay, great. So next thing we wanted to do is pull up first do the approval of the agenda. So I just need, if you agree with the agenda, for a member to motion to approve it, and a member to second, and then for Dominique to document.
I just put my hand up to motion, and I think Emma is seconding. Thanks for documenting, Dominique.
Perfect, great. And then we have this Mentimeter here, and I wonder, Dominique, if you wanted to I post the number in the chat, is what I mean to say, to enter into mentimeter.com. I think it's more Menti. Let me just double check.
Oh yeah, here, let me pull it up here.
Just a quick activity to kind of see what you guys are thinking about. And while we're doing that, actually, why don't we skip over to the minutes? And I have the, we did share them some time ago with the group that was with the exec, and I'm going to copy that. Those are the minutes that I was accidentally posted earlier. So that's okay. That makes sense, because they're both kind of like labeled minutes, right? So
yeah, I was like, oh, just you want me to just write over?
Don't worry.
I was like, I'll go back.
yeah. And if anybody wants to motion to approve the minutes from December, can do so. Most of you were here at the last meeting, and then we just need someone to second it.
I can approve them.
Okay, so Hilda's going to motion.
I can
And
second them. I can't find the hand.
okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. So it's menti.com that you go to and enter the code that has just been posted in the chat for the next piece. Now that we've got done, just going to it as well. Okay, and then can click on it here, and we should see our results come up once it loads. Okay, can everyone see the Menti result screen now? Yes, okay, great. And then you can fill in your answers. All right, I'll give ourselves like another minute or so. I know it's not easy to think on the spot.
Justin, I submitted mine, but I'm not seeing it pop up on the screen. I don't know. Does it just do it itself or?
I think it should.
Yeah, I think I made them as long answers, so it said they would pop up
Oh.
in kind of like a
Oh,
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
It
there we
just
go.
needed to
Perfect.
reload
Yay.
it. Here we are. It's
Good,
all
good.
here. Thanks for bringing that up though, because we don't want to wait too long in case it's just really not working. Oh, regenerative agriculture is so cool. Yeah, that single-use plastics, a lot of people have been bringing that up because it's such a clear issue when you're working in healthcare, just the amount of waste. It's definitely becoming well, it is a priority. I entered mine in twice, so they look almost the same. And sustainable development in the waste cycle. Yeah, money. How does that work financially? How do we change? All right, awesome. So this just helps us guide our work too. Like we always just like to get a little bit of feedback from you guys, anybody who's come along to understand what's top of mind. And that brings us to our next question, which is like, what would you like to see from us? And what topics resonate with you the most?
Mine's not loading.
Oh, the next question? Oh, maybe it will now, because I moved. Let me see.
Whatever.
I moved it over. Now that I moved it, I wonder if that's going to help.
Nah, that's okay.
It's not working. Oh, maybe I'll do the refresh magic. Okay. Has the slide not changed? It hasn't. Okay. Well, we might. Oh, no. Okay, one more try and then we'll move on. But please feel free to write in the chat anything that you're interested in terms of events or things that are that you want us to see us doing as ONEIG. All right. Okay, so let's move into some quick updates about what ONEIG's been up to. So from December to March, we've been pretty busy. A lot of little things going on and events, like they all came together like these next few weeks, it feels like. Although we did have some in, we did have a few in January as well. So I guess we'll start. Today is really going to tie into the work that Hilda was talking about, and then Samantha has just joined us a little bit ago too, about the election campaign, the climate emergency campaign. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but Hilda's been really engaging closely. I got to know a little bit about what's going on there. And the big news is that ONE-IIO has decided to sign on to this campaign. So that's going to be some more of our work going forward. Some events that we held in January. We had the sewing clothing repair Skillshare that Kelsey put together, and I did my best to put on, but I think we had a lot of fun and we learned like some new skills, and that recording is on YouTube. We also had the climate change and health event with Rob, who's here right now. And then we were part of the ONE-IIOE assembly, and I was part of a panel in February. So been pretty busy. And we'll talk about the things that are coming up next soon. And then we do have, we're all up in social media with Kelsey, with ONEIG, at ONE-IIOE on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So please share our content, our events, tag us on related issues, the environment and health. And also, if you can, there's often actions that we'll add along there, like petitions and articles for you to read. And then in terms of communicating with members, we've had some newsletters come out and some, oh, here's Samantha again. We've had some newsletters come out in December. Jess put one together that I hope you all had a chance to read. So that's been busy in communications too. And I'm just going to speak to what's coming next again. So let's move on to the next piece. Let's see. Oops, I'm moving too fast. Oh, I don't know why that looks like that. It's a little bit raised up almost. Okay. Doesn't look quite right. I'm just going to fix that really quickly so we don't have to see how it got moved.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, just one sec. There we go.
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, that's okay.
Not that savvy.
Oh no, it's okay. Let's see. I think I just have to move through. So
I just
bear with
copied
me.
and pasted because I don't know how to put like my slide that I made into there. So it's like copy and paste.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And I'm going to introduce Victoria, who's going to speak a little bit about our money and financial situation.
So at the beginning of this fiscal year, we, on the left-hand side, the projected spending there, we figured out where we kind of wanted to focus our money this year. On the left-hand side is the actual spending that we've done so far. There are a few things that still need to get added into that, but haven't gone through the process of getting expedited, like the scholarships and bursaries. We are working on that, which should be coming in November. There's the World Water Day, so we have the honorary and the speakers. We've supported them in supporting us. Facebook posts to some other stuff needs to get added, but in all honesty, we are nowhere near the 1,600 that we thought we were going to spend. So we're sitting really, really well right now. Our current balance right now is $7,089.74. So everything is good.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely spend some time thinking about how we can make the best use of those funds. But I mean, with the scholarship coming, and we are currently not collecting membership fees, so it's nice that we're in a good space because we offered free membership, as Ivan mentioned. Thank you.
Gideon, I do like your idea of being in the press on that, so I have added kind of a little asterisk to my projects and events for my next budget. So maybe we can discuss that in our executive meetings and how we can work that in, because I think that's a great idea.
There is such an appetite to hear from you folks. I mean, I can get into more detail later, but your voice, I mean, there's no voice more credible than yours on the environment. And, you know, in terms of media interviews, opinion articles, the press would love it and it'd be really helpful.
That's awesome to hear. Very encouraging.
Absolutely. I think we should get in there. Hopefully we can, we can do that more. Thanks, Gideon. And maybe we can
and in the run up to the election, a crucial voice, we can talk about that, but in the crucially between now and June 2nd.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, definitely. I think we want to see a change in the tides this election for sure. Um,
So that's it for me.
okay, perfect. No, that's great. It's a great
Short and
snapshot.
sweet.
Yeah, and I mean, when we have our discussion time too, we can even like spend some time thinking about like what would be a meaningful use of our ONEIG funds. You know, if we go in a different direction, or yeah, we can use some time for that. I wanted to give a little bit of time to Jessica, who's our communication, or Jessica, our communications ENO. He wanted to talk about the newsletter and yeah, give you the floor as an exec update.
Thanks, Jocelyn. So I just wanted to see if anybody had any feedback about our previous newsletter, and otherwise I'm really sort of inviting and seeking and hopeful that someone here or maybe someone else you know might want to contribute for our spring newsletter. Part of our focus will be World Water Day, and we're hoping to have it come out in April. And if it's not for this newsletter, for a future one, we'd certainly appreciate it. So a short blurb, a little eco-friendly tip, or something great that's going on within your health community, we'd love to hear about it. So please feel free to send an email to ONEIG and we'll coordinate having you in our newsletter. And then also too, if you have a skill that you can share with us, we'd love to set you up to be the highlight of one of our workshops.
Awesome. Yeah, we really would. Thanks so much, Jess. And maybe we can even think about using content in 2 different ways, like out in the media and in our newsletter. Like Gideon got us thinking about that a bit. Yeah, we'll talk more about it. Cool. And I wanted to also give the floor to Emma, who's thinking about some options for outreach with students.
Hi, so yes, Jocelyn and I had a really great little mini meeting with a student rep from the RNAO Palliative Interest Group, Tanya. And what they did was an initiative where they had 5 15 to 20 minute interviews with different nurses who had expertise in that area. And then in order to get some more student involvement, they offered a certificate program. So if you completed all 5 of the videos, completed a short survey about what you learned from it, what you thought of it, suggestions for future videos, then at the end you got a certificate of completion. And potentially it sounds like there's a financial incentive because they can get a discount on a training program related to, of course, palliative care. So it sounded like that was a really neat model to get students involved, or even to get other nurses involved who would like to have something tangible or to give some kind of an incentive to get involved, and also to kind of get the word out about what some of the work that some of the members are doing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And it actually seems to be working pretty well with, so I guess too, I know we're not a huge group, but for anyone listening on the video and anyone here too, like having, if any of you are, like Rob, you said you might be interested in doing a little video for that. We're going to look at whether it could be integrated into ONEIG as an outreach. So we'll talk about that more, but it was a really cool model. All right, thanks so much, Emma. And does anyone else want to give an update? I think we're going to go into World Water Day next. But there might be, let's see, I'm just going to make sure I have the right slide. Yes, maybe this is a good time too, Hilda, for you to give a quick overview of the event, the World Water Day event coming up this Sunday.
Yes, so I've been working hard to try and get people interested. And I just wanted to ask you a question. Like, I have to let the panelists know how long they're talking. And I met with synagogue people this morning. Jocelyn, since you were on a panel, do you think that 15 or 20 minutes is reasonable for 3 speakers? Or is it, should I cut it to 15 minutes? Like, I really want to ask your opinion.
Yeah, like 15 minutes per speaker?
Yeah.
Oh, so when I did that panel,
Yeah.
it was like, it was like question and answer, right? So I was thinking, well, for what we did was that we'd have a question and then we'd answer in like a couple of minutes, like up to 5. So maybe altogether we had 15 minutes, but it was like,
Right.
you know, a bit at the beginning and then I had time at the end. So altogether 15 might make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was a suggestion this morning that I was thinking about 20 minutes, but they said 15 should be adequate because we want to get people involved and participation.
Mhm.
So I've been working, Kim Wheatley is an Indigenous leader, very well respected in the community. And she and I met 5 years ago when I walked for water along Lake Ontario. And so I got quite excited. And she, before we were allowed to walk for water, we had to take an educational class from her or somebody that was working with her because we had to know what we were doing. Why are we doing it? Like, so it was so interesting just how she got us all involved, and we all knew that water was important and some of the Indigenous customs, so that when we went to see them and the drums and everything, we knew why this was happening. So she has agreed to come back and speak to us again. She's quite excited. She is a well-respected leader in the community who just loves to teach all kinds of people. And so she was very happy to come again and talk to us. And of course, we know Rob. So this, we decided to have this World Water Day a little bit different, looking like there's so much controversy and people are just have no patience for anybody else's point of view right now. There's such dissension and everybody's ready to attack each other. There isn't even the nice discussion we used to have. So we decided World Water Day would take people back to the commonality of water. We all need water to thrive. All life needs water to thrive, and they will concentrate on some of their different cultural practices. So we've got Kim Wheatley, we've got Rob Lowe, who's going to talk a little bit about Christian cultures relating to water. And of course, we're having our own Rabbi Grunland. He's going to also talk about water, but he didn't want to be on the poster exactly because he's not a guest speaker. He's part of the staff, so he did, but he is going to talk the same 15 minutes. So I was talking to him. So, and he's going to, of course, talk a little bit about Judaism, because everything about Judaism has water. Like we wash our hands before we eat. Like I just cannot imagine a day without water with some kind of ritual. Women have to go into the ritual bath before they can touch their husbands. Like they have to be clean. So there's so much ritualism in Judaism. There's no problem talking about 15 minutes about
Yeah,
it.
I'm so looking forward to it, Hilda. I think that's like a great plug because I think everyone's getting excited about it, and there is still room to register too. So we can get that link into the chat just so it's easy to click on if anybody here wants to join.
Right. So
if somebody can post that in.
Should be very interesting. And of course, we will talk about having a couple of questions beforehand because they told me this morning, they want to make sure that's not dead space once we open the Q&A, like we want to, and we always do that. We always get a few questions. So maybe Jocelyn and whoever, we can just think of 3 questions, one for each panelist.
Absolutely.
So there's not dead space. And then looking at each other.
I won't have a hard time coming up with questions. Yeah, so let's check in by email and we'll get some questions pulled together and send them off so you guys have an idea of what we might be thinking about. So that's perfect. And then Victoria, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Hilda, I actually prefer the question and answer method model to me just speaking, because I tend to speak for a little too long.
Well, we're going to make sure you're not going to speak too long because we're going to have a timekeeper. So is there some?
I need that.
Is there someone tonight who will commit just to being the timekeeper?
You can do it, Hilda.
No.
I can be that timekeeper, but speaking of timekeeper, I do need to timekeep for tonight. So, but yeah, I can definitely, I'm there, so I can do that. I can volunteer for that, Hilda. I can timekeep.
Okay, because you need someone who's going to be very firm and say, okay, move on, because they all like to talk. Like they all like to talk. And
I know, it's because there's such interesting stuff. Okay, so that's funny. We're being kind of like a live example. We'll continue on. such a cool event. So that's this weekend. And Victoria, this is your baby, this event here, the Gardening with Kitchen Scraps. So we don't have a lot of time, but hopefully we'll talk a little bit more. We should all go. It's really going to be really cool talking about ways that literally you can garden with very little and grow some cool, healthy food, right? So maybe we have a chance at the end to talk a bit about that. And if not, emails and social media as well are coming through on this event. Okay, next, I just want to bring up before we go for just a quick stretch and a walk around and come back, but we'll talk about how ONE-IIOE has its platform out, and it goes through each of the election. Well, it will use this document to go through the platforms of each of the political parties to compare the asks of ONE-IIOE and the platforms of the parties, so that nurses can more easily determine how they might like to vote and be more informed. And in ours this time, it's wonderful because there's a much stronger focus on environment, or a very clear focus on the environmental determinants of health as one of the kind of buckets of the platform this time round. One of them being a very ambitious but evidence-driven ask in terms of emissions reductions, and getting to recognize this target, because it's a target that's being asked by David Suzuki Foundation as well, in addition to some other asks, and some ways to get to this emissions reduction of 60% below 2005 levels by 2030. And the other ask really relates to the work that we've been doing on water and this World Water Day, which is to have a comprehensive water policy for clean and safe water for all Ontarios, to fill those gaps in policy and legislation right now that are leaving people unprotected and people without safe water, and future threats not being taken into consideration, like climate change. So those are the big asks by ONE-IIOE, and I want us to kind of keep these in mind in terms of what ONE-IIOE is doing next. And we're going to be really talking about the election after our short stretch break, when we speak with Gideon and Samantha, who's here. And they're going to talk about their point of view, what are the most important issues on the environment in this election, kind of why we should care and what they're about. And then we can talk about what we can do as nurses as well. So we'll just get up and stretch. And we still have a good amount of time. I just want to make sure you have time to talk afterwards. But let's just give ourselves 2 minutes. I can turn off your camera. Let's just 2 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll ease into the talks by Gideon and Samantha. Okay, so I'll see you in just a couple of minutes, everyone, at 8:15. All right, everyone will start to come back here. I hope you had a good quick stretch and maybe you had a glass of water. And we're going to now say hello and just make sure. Yes, I see Samantha's here and Gideon, and we're going to go to their talk. I want to do a quick introduction though. So unfortunately, I'm having trouble seeing my notes. I'm just going to do this. Just 1 second. So many different things open here. Okay, great. So I wanted to introduce you to first Dr. Samantha Green, who is a family physician at St. Mike's Hospital and at the Intercity Health Associates in Toronto, board member with the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, and faculty lead in climate change and health at U of T's Department of Family and Community Medicine. She focuses in on marginalized populations and those experiencing homelessness and in the criminal justice system, as well as newcomers. She advocates for climate action, and we're connected to her through her work in the with the Ontario Climate Emergency Campaign, and Hilda's work within that group as well. So welcome, Samantha, to our meeting tonight, officially. And I also wanted to introduce you to Gideon Forman, who is here, as we know, from David Suzuki Foundation. Is in the role of climate change and transportation policy analyst. Focuses in on clean energy, again, the policy, climate policy, transport, and has an MA in philosophy in McGill University and a certificate in renewable energy from the University of Toronto. Has won the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, which is amazing, and is the former executive director of CAPE. So there's a connection there. And thank you, Samantha, too, for helping to link us together. I'll just know that Gideon, you shared some of your passions with us. And I think it's great that in your bio, you cite one of those as finding wild animals moving through the city. It's one of my hobbies as well. So I just want to, again, formally welcome you to coming to our meeting tonight. Thank you both for joining us to talk a little bit about this election and the important environmental issues happening right now. So I'll send the mic over to you, Gideon.
Well, thanks so much, Jocelyn. Can folks hear me okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're able to hear. Great, thanks. I don't want to go through this whole thing without anyone being able to hear. It's interesting you mentioned about seeing wildlife. It was just amazing in the early days of the pandemic. I don't know if others experienced this, but the amount of wildlife that I saw in the city. I live in downtown Toronto, and we saw like foxes in our neighborhood, and not just like the red foxes, like silver foxes. I saw coyotes. I saw a possum on my porch. Anyway, it was quite staggering. Like when there's less of us, there's just more of them. But we can talk more about that after. I'm going to keep my remarks quite brief. The most interesting thing, I hope, will be our discussion. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions and comments. So I'm just going to quickly say a couple of words, and then I'd love to hear what you folks are thinking. And I'd love to talk, if you're interested, on the issue of some more media work for or media coverage for ONEIG, because I think just the very fact of a nurses environmental organization is not widely known to the public, and I think would be of a lot of interest to the media. So anyway, we can take that up in a bit. But as I mentioned, I'm a climate policy analyst at David Suzuki Foundation. I've been at DSF for 7 years now. Our big project right now is to try to get Ontarians out to vote, and we're doing a lot of work on that. We really are trying to get people to vote with the climate emergency and protection of nature top of mind. Obviously, we're a charity, so we're not here to tell anybody, which candidate or party or leader, any of that stuff. But we want people to get out and vote, and when they do, we want them to think about our issues. And in particular, there's 3 issues that we're really asking people to think about when they start mulling over which candidate they're going to support. And the first one is protecting green space. In Southern Ontario, we're blessed with this green belt, this extraordinary landscape of farms and rivers and forests. If you live in Southern Ontario, I hope you've had a chance to do some hiking through the green belt. It's a gorgeous place. If you've seen it as I have, you know how marvelous it is. And the green belt is under threat now. And it's under threat for a number of reasons, but primarily it's under threat because the Ontario government is planning to pave part of it with these awful highways, which I'm sure you've heard about, Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass. Don't get me started on why these are such terrible projects, just from every single point of view, from conservation of nature, the effects that they'll have. They'll make congestion worse, of course. They'll incentivize more driving. They're a threat to endangered animals. Just from every point of view, it is madness to be contemplating such a project during a climate crisis. So if you're concerned about the Greenbelt, we urge people to vote on June 2nd. And this is one of the messages that we're getting out because of those terrible threats from Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass. The second broad area that we're asking people to think about when they vote is renewable energy. I mean, we obviously have to get off fossil fuels. We have to shift to renewables like solar and wind. We're blessed in Ontario with lots of solar and wind. There are parts of the province that are producing huge amounts. I was actually just on the province's what they call the Independent Electricity System Operators site today. They're the organization that manages our electricity system. And 4,000 megawatts of power today came from wind power. To put that in perspective, about a quarter of Ontario's electricity today came from wind. So we know we can do it. When I think back to when I was a kid, I mean, we were nowhere on wind and solar, and now it's very significant, particularly wind in this province. A few years back, the province's renewable sector was starting to take off and investor confidence was high. There was a lot of excitement just a few years back on the renewables file, and then bang, 2018, the Ontario government canceled, as you know, about 750, like you think about it, 750 of these renewable energy contracts in solar and wind, saddling Ontarians with hundreds of millions of dollars, over $200 million in cancellation costs, killing jobs and killing clean renewable energy. So, you know, our second message is if you're concerned about this loss of jobs, if you're concerned about the loss of emissions-free power, please get out and vote on June 2nd and encourage your friends to do likewise. And the third major area, Jocelyn, is protecting species at risk. We know that Ontario is home to hundreds of species that are now at risk of disappearing. Over 200, my colleagues who are immersed in the nature file tell me, over 200 species in the province are at risk of disappearing. And these are beautiful creatures that many of us have seen on our walks in nature, whether it's the Blandings turtle you may have seen with this beautiful yellow chin, you can tell because it's very distinctive. Bobolink, the beautiful bird that's found in hay fields that can fly, I'm told, up to 1,800 kilometers in a day. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. Red-headed woodpeckers, and on and on. And these are some of the animals that are at risk of disappearing. You'd think, given this, that the Ontario government would be doing everything that it possibly could to save these at-risk species while there's still time. The sad and troubling part is that the province's record in this area is very poor. You may have seen in recent weeks, the Ontario Auditor General wrote a report, and she found, and I quote, you know, our audit found that the Environment Ministry is failing in its mandate to protect species at risk, unquote. That's fairly significant if you're failing at that and you're the Environment Ministry. And again, this is not the tree huggers, this is not David Suzuki saying this is the Auditor General of the province saying that the province's Environment Ministry is failing. That's her word. So it's very troubling. The good news is that we do have an opportunity. So again, on June 2nd, we're asking folks, if you're concerned about losing some of our animal friends forever, it's crucial that you vote and you get your friends to vote. The good news, and I'll end here because I do want to end on a more positive note, it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that Ontarians really feel strongly about these issues. ECOS, the major pollster, did some research back in the end of 2021, so just a few months ago in November, and they found that 85% of us, 85% of Ontarians agree that the province should do more to protect forests and wildlife. Well, that's a very encouraging statistic. You know, the vast majority of us want the province to do more. And so I think the challenge now and our task is to elect politicians who will respect our wishes, who will act on our wishes, and make laws that actually preserve nature and reduce emissions. So that's the challenge I'm setting out. We're doing everything we possibly can to get folks to vote on June 2nd with these issues in mind, and we'd love your support on that as well. So I'll leave it there, Jocelyn, and happy to drill down deeper on any of these. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gideon. And now I know some questions might have come into people's minds and or comments. So just before we move on to Samantha, I want to open it up and see if anyone wanted to ask a question or make a comment. Sure. You can just take your mic off.
I would like to ask, well, make a comment actually. I care about wildlife, I care about green space. Like, it's important to me, but I think I decided to change my environmental activism from that kind of angle to more of a health angle, because I think it can really touch people at what matters viscerally to them, like more of the existential threat. Like 10 million people die every year, or approximately, due to air pollution. 6 million
That's right.
people have died due to COVID. The existential threat to our health might be a more powerful angle than talking about wildlife. Because wildlife is nice, but like, it's not going to kill me.
I mean, and I think there is evidence, like from the climate communications literature, that you're correct. I mean, people, especially people who are ambivalent about the climate crisis, are more likely to support climate action if you speak about health. And if you speak about the climate crisis happening now and not in the future, and if you frame it in a positive way, taking action will do us good. So those are the three frames that work: health, now, positive. And you're right that people also listen if you're speaking as a healthcare provider, and I'm sure you all know this in ONEIG, probably beating something that you know very well. But yeah, I mean, from Edward Maybach, who's a climate communication scientist in the US, he studied this quite a bit, and he did surveys of thousands of Americans. It's American data, and the people they trust most to speak about climate change specifically are nurses and family doctors. That's who they trust, not climate scientists, certainly not politicians, but they trust nurses and family doctors. So you're right. And at the same time, I mean, I can let Gideon jump in about the importance of wildlife preservation as well as part of the ongoing ecological emergency. It may not have a direct impact on emissions per se, but I think they're intertwined. And I'm sure Gideon has more to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think Sam's points are well taken. I mean, I think we got to try a variety of different messages and a variety of different messengers. And it makes perfect sense for ONEIG to talk about health, and likewise for Sam and Cape to talk about health. And we talk about health sometimes as well, but I think we need to try a variety of messages. We certainly know from our polling that the green belt and all the green belt implies is very, very important to people. Like 75% of Ontarians roughly say the green belt is no place for a highway. Well, that's a very significant statistic. So I think your point's well taken, that there will be instances where talking about wildlife will not resonate with people. In some cases it will, but you're right, it won't always resonate. And so I think we need to tailor the message for the particular audience. I think it's a point well taken. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for your comments. And I want to hear a little bit more from you too, Samantha, because I think it's such a great bridge between the interests here, because we're all here because we care about, the work that both of the organizations are doing and that both of you are doing. So yeah, I would love to hear kind of your perspective as a little bit more deeper. Yeah.
I mean, and I wasn't sure how much you've already spoken about the Ontario Climate Emergency Campaign. Have you already discussed it?
So I held most of that off for you because I knew that it would be discussed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm only sharing my screen, like I don't have slides or anything, but I thought that it would be useful to kind of present the parts of the sort of 11 parts of the campaign. We called it 10, but I actually think we're going to revert to 12 because it truly has 12 pieces to it. And we got feedback that maybe we should just keep it at 12. Anyways, I'll go through each of the points. And yes, Cape has actually played an instrumental role in this. This website is actually was designed and is being run by Millie Roy, who's an ophthalmologist and co-chair of Cape Ontario, the Volunteer Regional Committee. And then I've been involved in our other co-chair, Mark Katja, who's a public health resident physician, has also been involved. And then I know that you guys have also really been involved. And so we advocated for point number 5 here. But I will go through each of the points because I think it's, I mean, not in huge detail, but I do think it's important that this is where we landed. And
it's a consensus document, which is like not easy, especially when it's like such diverse groups who have come together, including like really big groups like environmental defense and DSF, and then really tiny groups like SCAN, Seniors for Climate Action Now, and there's an artist group as well, Artists for Climate Action, ARCA. Yeah, and we also have youth involved, Fridays for Future, Future Majority, which is also a youth organization. Anyways, and coming together and somehow piecing together the words to this was like a lot of work. And our goal was to make this a bold document. And so, I mean, you may be surprised by some of the numbers, but I think what we're calling for is to treat the climate emergency like an emergency. And I think the purpose of this is really to push the opposition to take on bold platforms and to show the opposition that actually there's a lot of support, broad-based support for a bold climate plan. So I don't think we're going to win over any Ford supporters with this document, but that's not really the idea. The idea was really to push the opposition to actually go where they need to go, like based on science, and not like wimp out with kind of mediocre targets with an aim of maybe winning over a few Ford supporters. So anyways, set binding climate targets based on science. This is the same target as the RNAO. And then we also said 100% by 2040, which you may think is bold, but it's in line with what the science calls for. And establishing rolling 5-year carbon budgets, reviewing targets, keeping track. Prioritizing and respecting Indigenous sovereignty and autonomy. I mean, I think that speaks for itself, but we did speak in particular about recognizing and respecting Indigenous peoples' jurisdiction, and collaborating in true partnership with Indigenous peoples. Investing in a thriving regenerative zero economy, investing 2% of Ontario's GDP, which at the moment is about $19 billion per year. And we actually ran these numbers by the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, and they were like okay with that number, even though it sounds very big. And it's actually consistent with what's in the climate plans in the NDP and Green Party platforms. So although it sounds like a very large number, it's actually in keeping with what we know we need, because we need that money invested in a zero emissions, decarbonized, renewable energy economy. And fossil fuel subsidies immediately and rapidly wind down all fossil fuel use. So phase out gas-fired electricity, and then redirect to energy efficiency and fully renewable low carbon energy sources. So we need to invest, as Gideon said, in renewable energy, solar and wind, and prioritize public health, as the climate crisis is our single greatest health crisis, and you all know this. And so thinking about health in all policies at the provincial level, and moving beyond GDP-based measurements and moving towards a well-being economy type of indicator. And then we did speak specifically about a transition, because in Ontario, like, we're not a fossil fuel producer, but we are certainly fossil fuel consumers. So we need to reduce the emissions from the consumption in our buildings and in our transportation primarily. So establishing stringent new building codes, banning new gas connections in new buildings, and then accelerating as well the transition to zero emissions transportation, including canceling Highway 413 and the Bradford bypass, which are both bananas in a climate emergency. And I mean, I also have here, in case we wanted to talk more about that, a letter that we wrote. If I can figure out my Zoom. Changing tabs is difficult because my Zoom's in the way. There we go. We can go through this in more detail if you want. This is a letter that Cape Ontario wrote and sent to our MPPs about how bad those proposed highways are for health. Never mind their impact on climate, but their impact on air pollution, their impact on obesity and metabolic conditions, because people will be more car dependent. If you're building more car dependent communities, that's what happens. Anyway, so they're bad for health in so many ways. And then we speak about urgently protecting biodiversity, because there are nature-based solutions to the climate crisis by investing in carbon sinks like the Greenbelt, the boreal forests of Northern Ontario, and the James Bay lowland. So as we were saying, everything is interconnected, and protection of wildlife is also a climate investment. And then agriculture and investing in local, organic, regenerative agricultural and food systems, including supporting Indigenous communities and supporting farmers in the shift to these new food systems. And then finally, and I think this is an interesting and important point, instituting a broad public education campaign, as we all have the right to know what's at stake. So, I mean, just like in the COVID-19 pandemic, people need to know that the climate crisis is a health crisis, and they need to know like how much of a code red we are in right now, because obviously the general public is not really aware of that, despite, you know, every 6 months a new IPCC report stating as such. And so there needs to be investment actually at a public level in a public education campaign. And then finally, and this is our kind of 11th point, leave no one behind, of course, and invest money in a just transition for people who work in the fossil fuel economy, and also invest money in adaptation and resilience for people who will be who are most affected by the climate crisis and who will be most affected by the climate crisis. So those are the points, and I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or talk about like the way that nurses can use this. I mean, if you go to this website as well, so the RNAO has just signed on to this, which is nice. Of course, we can see the sign on here. Here you go, latest sign on, RNAO. And if you want to use this, there are these toolkits. So there is a mock MPP letter or candidate letter, which you can use to send these points to your candidates. And then there's also a candidate pledge. We can ask our candidates to sign on to the OCEC campaign. And then I think there are some resources here as well. Some, oh, the website is still under development, but those are the two main things. So like the candidate letter that you can use to send a letter to your candidates and then request a meeting. So never just send a letter, always send a letter and request a meeting. And then a candidate pledge that you can then at your meeting have them sign. Yeah, I think I'll stop there.
That's such incredible work. Thanks so much. It's amazing how much has come together in what seems like a fairly short time. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we'll get the toolkit out there as well, especially because now we're like, you know, free to just be, you know, say that RNAO is a signatory here, and that we're full signatories in this, so full support of the campaign. And I wanted to, we've got a lot of content that that like so many different subject areas, because that's what you're really hoping to do, right? Is like get a comprehensive view of what needs to happen in Ontario. And I wonder if anyone had any comments or questions to share with Samantha.
I really liked your last point about making sure that it's inclusive, because I do think that marginalized and low income communities are sometimes forgotten about when we're talking about some of these initiatives, because it's all well and good to say, take public transit, switch to an electric car, switch your home over to heat pumps or whatever, but those are very costly. Even things like going to a different grocery store because it has a bulk food section, that might not be an option for people. So I feel like that was a really nice point that you included.
Right, thank you. And I mean, and that is why we need the government to invest in these things, because it has to be public dollars, right? We can't rely on individuals to be, like you said, you know, spending their own money paying for these very expensive sustainable choices. It has to be public investment in heat pumps and allowing and like encouraging and paying for people to retrofit their homes, etc. Yeah.
How many billions of dollars have been invested into the fossil fuel industry from Canadian government? Like we could
there you go.
Just make it so that that transit is, well, in Ottawa, transit's free for the next few weeks. Like we can make transit affordable, things like that.
I really
It's just been a second. Oh, go ahead, Olivia.
I'm so sorry. I really appreciate both Gideon and Dr. Green's points on messaging, because it's so easy to forget if you have a background in anything really, that when you're trying to relay stuff to the public, that as a specialist in a certain field, like the jargon you're using does not transfer. Like I know I was doing some research into corals and watching some documentaries on that, and there was a big role of having people with marketing backgrounds and business backgrounds to be able to make the information in a way that like the general public can understand. Even with my patients, sometimes I get talking and they're like, what the hell are you mentioning? Because I'm using terms that are just so beyond them, or like clinical terms that don't make sense, or short forms and abbreviations.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I was
Another-
just going to
I don't know-
second what Emma had shared just about being inclusive, because the social determinants of health are so uniquely tied to environmental components. So I think that is important that we do focus that way. Sorry, I did kind of missed my moment there, but didn't want to miss that, because I just think that is so important and valid, and should be voiced louder for all those communities that aren't able to necessarily have the voices. We need to be that voice for them.
Yeah, any comments on what's been talked about so far, Gideon, about the kind of the issues of translation and the issues of kind of, I don't know, that divide in people who are able to spend the money to act, but other people paying the disproportionate burden of the expense of both the transition and of course of the climate crisis.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that became clear immediately with the climate crisis as it started to dawn on us was that marginalized people are hit hardest and hit first. So there's no question about that. I often do these talks with university students, encouraging them to take public transit, walk more, cycle more, and often the response is, but we can't do that if you live in Brampton or Mississauga or other suburban areas. There's just no safe bike infrastructure, right? And if buses come once an hour, so absolutely. I mean, these things have to be considered public goods, and governments have to build them out so that people can really take public transit, right? Like when I talk to municipal councils about opposing Highway 413, some of the councilors say, great idea, but if you live in Caledon, how do you get anywhere without a car? Which is an excellent point. Right, so I mean, our position is you stop the highway and you build out a lot of transit. So absolutely, yeah, and there's equity pieces to all of this, yeah, for sure.
And on the piece about making it translatable, I think not only to like the general public too, but a lot of what we're speaking to is trying to get like health professionals on board, and people in the health field, and like I guess I am intimidated by earth sciences language. Sometimes I took a lot of time to learn, like, kind of how can I explain to someone like back then that the climate crisis was real, because they would tell me, if you talk about interglacial periods and they talk about like normal cycles. And I think that's a big difficulty. And I guess I want to ask you, Samantha, like this is a politicians focused campaign. Like, how are you kind of engaging with different groups, different literacy levels, different target groups with this campaign? Because I know that's been a discussion you've been having.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's an easy answer there. I don't think we've landed on an answer. I mean, I guess it depends what your goals are. I know that a number of groups, including environmental defense, are focusing in on target ridings that are known to be close or what were close in the previous election and have a local environmental issue that people care about, like the 413, but there are other kind of local issues, like there was a wetland in Ajax that people wanted to pave over, for example. And so that's, I think, one strategy that they have chosen to take. And I think that's interesting because it's really like tackling local issues that people care about. And probably like people who may otherwise be in support of a conservative government might think twice if they are really caring about this local issue. And then more broadly, this campaign, as I said, isn't really like looking to change votes, really. Like the goal is to push the opposition. And I think it's like a longer term target of like post-election, hopefully we elect a party that cares about climate change? And if so, they need a real climate plan. And so that's what the goal of this is. And so in that case, our communication strategy is a little bit different, right? Like we're actually kind of targeting, I think, a more general public audience and really normalizing that this is the level of action that's needed. This is what the science says. And so, you know, we can't be fussing about, you know, 2050. Like we need to take action now. And this is like the level of investment we need, 2% of the GDP, $19 billion a year. So I think the communication target is a bit different. It's like more like a general target and normalizing this kind of level of action.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and I think media is going to be a big part of that too. We were talking about that, right? About with you and I guess Emily and everyone's been leading that campaign. I want to open it up to any other comments or questions.
I have one other question about the campaign. It sounds a lot of the 413 is very GTA centric, and I know Doug Ford's very GTA. He's a GTA premier, but we just got a hospital approved to be put on the experimental farm here in Ottawa and take up a whole bunch of parkland. There's the Ring of Fire up north. There's a whole bunch of other environmental issues that are outside of the GTA. What things in those campaigns are targeting voters outside of the GTA, other than like the 413 and Bradford bypass?
Did you want to say something, Sam, or I can?
I mean, sure. Yeah, I think like we were very careful in this in these points. Like if you go to the points that like we were trying very hard to not be GTA centric, and we did have members from outside of the GTA, like a bunch of the SCAN members actually are from up north, and Seniors for Climate Action now, which is a great group. I got to get my parents involved. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, if you look at we did, like when we were talking about, for example, protection of natural biodiversity, we did take feedback and included not only the Greenbelt, which we all think of, or at least me being in Toronto thinks of the Greenbelt only, but the Northern Ontario forests and the James Bay lowlands. And of course the Great Lakes as well. And yes, we did specifically mention the 413 and Bradford bypass, but I think we also tried to speak of other geographic areas. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, Gideon, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues that we could focus on. There's so many places where this government has failed on the environment. So there's no shortage of environmental failures with this government. We have focused on the GTA, the 905 belt around Toronto, because frankly, it's a place that's in play with respect to the election. Lots of parts of the province, unfortunately, are decided, but the 905 belt probably isn't. And so our hope is if we can get enough folks voting in the 905 belt with environment in mind, we can elect a government that cares about these issues. So that's the strategy. We can't do it all, so we have focused on the 905.
Yeah.
And we know there's a lot of support for the things that we're trying to do in the 905. We know that people in 905 themselves, for example, don't want a highway through the Greenbelt.
Yes, that's a really good point. I was actually going to bring that up and I forgot that, like, it is unfortunately when I look even at the long list of like the top 25 ridings that are in play, it's like 95% are in the GTA. There's like Peterborough as well. And I don't think there were any in Ottawa that were in play. I mean, of course, it's not a science. It's like an analysis of the previous provincial election, the last federal election. But yeah, they're just not close. I don't know. Did you speak about Green Pack as well already, Jocelyn? So, I mean, that is another area to get involved in this election. And it just came to mind because Green Pack also has a list of their target 10 ridings. So Green Pack, which you may or may not know, is an organization, nonpartisan organization that aims to get environment on the agenda during elections. In previous federal elections, they've run debates across the country focused on the environment. And for this provincial election, they are aiming to run 10 debates in a list of select 10 ridings, which are all in the GTA. And the plan is to focus not just on environment, but environment and health, environment and economy. And And so, but they are looking for partners. So if you live in any of their target ridings, which I can put in the chat, then you should get in touch with them if you're interested in helping out. I'm going to put that in the chat now.
Thanks so much, Samantha. Yeah, did anyone want to add or have a question they wanted to ask?
And RNAO also is going to have an all candidates debate, which they are organizing, and the environment will definitely be on that. So
Yeah.
they're always involved. And also another thing that I always tell people, even if you're not organizing the debate, make sure you ask one important question, because at a lot of the debates, you get a chance to ask a question. And so you make sure it's a substantial, environmentally focused question that is important to people in that riding.
Good points. Yeah, hopefully we'll be looking to partner too for that debate, I think too, right, Hilda? But we want to make sure that we do a part too in hearing about these issues, and like hearing directly from candidates, hopefully candidates in swing ridings too, so we can really give them a chance to, you know, shine in terms of their platforms and their strengths on environmental issues. Because yeah, really the focus here is getting people who support these issues that Gideon and Samantha have talked about into seats, and then hold them to account. And that's more work to be done, right? Yeah, I think we have a couple more minutes, and I just want to see if anyone else wanted to add any points, or maybe you two wanted to add a couple closing pieces.
Just unless you wanted to, Samantha, I just wanted to leave folks with one thing. Like, having worked with CAPE for a decade and partnering with RNAO on a lot of projects, which is really a wonderful experience, working with Doris and her team and others, individual nurses, like, the credibility that you folks have is through the roof. And you don't have to be steeped in every aspect of climate science to be able to speak out with credibility on climate science, or any of these other issues for that matter. So I really would urge you to do as much outreach to the media as you can, in a nonpartisan way, of course, encouraging people to get out and vote. And when they do, to keep these issues in mind. And I guarantee you the press will be interested in what you have to say. They will take what you say seriously. I think the press will be interested, first of all, that there's such an organization as the Nurses for the Environment Group. I think a lot of the press don't even know that. That in itself would be a story for the Toronto Star or CBC or whatever. We can talk about the details. So, I mean, I think getting that message out that nurses are working on these issues is, first of all, a really good story. And then specific things with, you know, whatever you happen to be working on, I think would be of interest to the press. We do this at the Suzuki Foundation, and we have a whole communications team. So we're constantly pitching stories to the media. Frankly, a lot of them are much less interesting than this, the fact that nurses are working on the environment. And we get a fair bit of bounce, partly because of David. So yeah, this is a larger discussion, and I'm happy to, you know, if I can support it in any way, I'm happy to. We recently released an open letter about Highway 413. Doris's name was on it, and that was a big help in making it news. So yeah, you really do have this power to speak to the public, and I encourage you to use it through the media.
Thanks. I think we probably will take you up on that. I think it's a goal of ours, so it's definitely on our minds right now, especially now. And we have RNAO's team too, for anyone who's
yes, exactly,
like communications. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Gideon. Yeah, be great to connect on your contacts too, because it's like the people who are writing on the environment, right? So
it's all about relationships with journalists, and we can help you with that.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Yeah.
And Samantha, any final words from you?
I mean, I would just echo what Gideon said. I think you're completely right. And not only in the Star, but I mean, I don't know where the people on this call live, but I think local papers, and maybe you can potentially have a bigger impact in a local paper if you're outside of Toronto.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, and actually, let's see. I'm going to share my screen again because if I can. Oh, I can't right now, but it doesn't matter. There's what I was going to say next is that if anybody here who's not already involved in ONEIG, and I won't point you out because there's only a few of you, but anybody who's listening to this as well, like we have positions and we definitely have room for more energy because there's so much we can do. And I think working in communications and media is like a huge piece that we can add to. So yeah, feel free to email us. And our ONEIG elections are going to start soon, so you'll see an email about that as members. So I'll add that in. And then final plugs for our events coming up. We know we're going to be engaged in a all candidates debate of some kind, or an election debate in some kind. So we'll keep everyone up to date about that, and we'll keep you two up to date about that too. Maybe we will be engaged in it. That work's coming, and I'll give a minute too for we have World Water Day. We heard a bit about that coming up, and Victoria, I don't know if you want to speak for a second about the event on April 6th and what people can expect.
Yeah, sure. It's very, very simple for anybody attending, honestly. The only thing you might need if you don't have it around is some soil, if that. Honestly, you're probably only going to need maybe a jar or a tray, something flat-ish. A plate can even do. You can, by the end of this, you'll be able to go into your kitchen, find in your fridge any kind of vegetable and grow it again. That's essentially the goal of this. So you'll save tons of money at the grocery store. Yeah, it'll probably be about an hour. I'm thinking, I'm going through it now going, oh, I might need to trim it. I know I talk a lot when I get nervous. So, but it's full of tons of information, from starting to grow it yourself from seeds or from vegetables you currently have, and you just have the the little scrap ends of it, to growing it from seeds, to transplanting them outside, to knowing when to grow them, and inside and outside, how to take care of them outside, pests, all kinds of stuff. So there's a ton of information. I'm just putting in the middle part of it right now. I'm working on it to take a break, maybe stretch.
Yeah, no, that's so great. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be such a cool opportunity to learn some hands-on skills. We can chat, we just have some fun and build our little environment and nursing community. So yeah, thanks, Victoria. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
I'm really excited about it. I'm very excited, if you can't tell.
It's going to be great.
Actually, I've used the David Suzuki Foundation in a couple of points to just kind of back my stuff up. So having you here, Gideon, was great for me. And I went, ooh, I know you.
Awesome.
Happy to help. Yeah.
Awesome. And yeah, and food is featured in, everyone here who knows how critical it is when we're talking about, ecological well-being overall, the ways that it's grown, climate, and obviously everyone's personal health and population health. So I just think it's a great connector, and it's the season, people have it on their mind. So we'll use that opportunity to get together. And just one final thank you to everyone who came tonight. Thank you so much, Samantha and Gideon, for joining us. We'll get this up on the YouTube as soon as we can, and get the word out. So yeah, have a great night. We're ending right on time, which is magical.
Perfect, right at 9.
Yeah, exactly. It works so well. And if any follow-up questions or thoughts come to mind, I put the email address on there in the chat, so you can grab it quickly. And yeah, we'll be in touch again. Take care.
Thank you so much for the
everyone.
invitation, Jocelyn, and everyone at ONEIG. Really appreciated it.
Oh, we really appreciate your time too. Take care all.
Thanks,
Pleasure. Take
everyone. Have
care.
a good evening.
Good
Bye-bye
night.
all.